Welcome. Settle in. Let the weight of the day fall away from you. Tonight, we seek refuge from the noise of our world, stepping into a place defined by silence, by devotion, and by the tireless labor of hands long still. We journey to a medieval monastery, nestled perhaps in a remote valley, or perched upon a windswept hill. Here, behind thick stone walls, lived the silent scribes. Let the quietude of their world embrace you and guide you towards rest. Imagine the deep, impenetrable darkness of a medieval night. The moon, if visible, casts long, stark shadows across the cloistered walkways. The air is cold, biting. Stone walls, floors, and arches radiate a damp chill that seeps into the very bones. There is no hum of electricity, no distant traffic, only the sighing of the wind, perhaps the hoot of an owl, or the distant bleating of sheep huddled together for warmth. Inside the dormitory, rows of simple, hard pallets line the walls. Each monk lies wrapped in coarse woolen blankets, the only defense against the pervasive cold. Sleep is not a luxury here, but a brief respite, a necessary pause in a life dedicated to prayer and work. The silence is profound, broken only by the soft breathing of sleeping men, or perhaps the occasional cough echoing in the vaulted space. It is a silence heavy with unspoken prayers, with the weight of vows taken, with the quiet anticipation of the bell that will soon shatter the stillness. Long before the first hint of dawn, a bell rings out. Its metallic clang cuts through the darkness, sharp and insistent. This is the call to matins, the night office. There is no groaning, no lingering. Duty, ingrained and absolute, pulls the monks from their beds. Imagine them rising in the pitch black, or by the flickering light of a single tallow candle carried by a senior monk. The cold floor is a shock to bare feet. They dress quickly, silently, in their simple, rough habits. Their movements are practiced, economical. There is no wasted time, no idle chatter. They process shadows in the gloom towards the chapel. Their footsteps echo softly on the stone. The chapel itself is vast, cold, and dimly lit. Perhaps a few candles flicker on the altar, casting dancing shadows on the stone pillars and the faded images of saints. They take their places in the choir stalls, the wood worn smooth by centuries of use. And then the chanting begins, low, sonorous, the ancient Latin phrases filling the cold air, a river of sound flowing through the darkness, praising God before the world awakens. This is followed by lauds, the dawn prayer, as the very first faint gray light might begin to touch the high windows. The life of a monk is a symphony conducted by bells. Each canonical hour, prime, terce, sext, none, vespers, compline, dictates a return to the chapel for prayer and psalms. Between these services, there is work. For some, this means tending the gardens, baking bread in the kitchens, caring for the sick in the infirmary, or studying theological texts. But for our silent scribes, the path leads to the scriptorium. This is the heart of the monastery's intellectual and artistic life, though it is often a surprisingly humble space. Perhaps a long room, with large windows to catch as much precious daylight as possible, though glass is a luxury, and often windows might be covered with oiled parchment or wooden shutters, making the light dim and precious. There is no grand fireplace here. Fire is a constant threat to the valuable manuscripts. The cold is a persistent companion. Imagine the scribe, settling at his slanted wooden desk. His breath mists in the air. His fingers, already stiff from the pre-dawn chill, will soon ache from hours of meticulous work. Before him lies a sheet of parchment, animal skin, carefully prepared, scraped, and smoothed. It is a valuable commodity. Every word inscribed upon it must be perfect. His tools are simple, a sharpened quill, usually from a goose feather, a knife for scraping away errors, a costly mistake, and pots of ink. Black ink, often made from soot or oak galls, and perhaps a precious pot of red ink, minium for headings or important initials. His task is copying, recreating, letter by painstaking letter, an existing manuscript. Perhaps it is a Bible, a psalter, the writings of a church father, or even a classical text deemed worthy of preservation. There is no room for personal interpretation, only for faithful reproduction. The silence in the scriptorium is intense, broken only by the whisper of quills, the occasional soft cough, or the rustle of a page being turned with utmost care. Imagine the concentration required, hours upon hours hunched over the desk. The light strains the eyes, the cold numbs the fingers, the muscles in the back and shoulders scream in protest. Yet the work continues. Each letter is formed with precision. Sometimes a more skilled artist, an illuminator, might later add vibrant illustrations, intricate borders, or gilded initials, transforming the page into a work of art. But for most scribes, it is the relentless, unadorned copying of text. This is not just labor, it is a form of prayer, an act of devotion, preserving knowledge, preserving the sacred word, in an age when books are rare and precious things. Each completed page is a small victory against the encroaching darkness of ignorance, a tiny beacon of learning. The scribe does not exist in a vacuum. Though his focus is intense, the life of the monastery flows around him. The bells continue to call him to prayer, brief interruptions in his long day of copying. He eats his meager meals in the refectory, often in silence, while another monk reads aloud from a sacred text. The food is simple, often bland. Bread, pottage, perhaps some vegetables from the monastery garden. What thoughts occupy his mind during those long hours in the scriptorium? Does he ponder the meaning of the texts he copies? Does he struggle with doubts, with weariness, with the temptations of the world outside these walls? Perhaps there are moments of profound peace, of spiritual connection, as his hand forms the sacred words. Or perhaps, sometimes, it is simply a struggle against boredom, against the ache in his back, against the creeping cold. This life is harsh. It demands discipline, obedience, and a deep, unwavering faith. It is a life stripped bare of worldly comforts, dedicated to a higher purpose. The silence of the scriptorium is not empty. It is filled with the quiet hum of immense effort, both physical and spiritual. As the daylight begins to fade, the pace in the scriptorium might slow. The precious light is failing. Soon the bell for vespers, the evening prayer, will ring. The monks gather once more in the chapel, their voices rising in the familiar chants as dusk settles over the monastery. After vespers, perhaps a brief period of reading or quiet contemplation. Then, the final service of the day, Compline, the prayers for protection through the night. It is a service that speaks of endings, of trust, of commending one's soul to God before the vulnerability of sleep. The great silence descends upon the monastery after Compline. No monk is permitted to speak until prime the next morning. They return to the cold dormitory, the day's labors, both spiritual and physical, complete. The cycle is almost finished, ready to begin anew in just a few short hours. Imagine our scribe, lying on his hard pallet. His eyes are tired, his fingers stiff. The words he copied throughout the day might still echo in his mind. The chill of the stone is ever present. But there is also, perhaps, a sense of peace, of purpose fulfilled. He has played his small part in the great, silent work of the monastery. Let the profound quiet of this medieval night envelop you. Let the dedication of these silent scribes, their patient labor in the cold and dim light, be a distant, soothing thought. There is nothing more to do now but rest. The bells are silent. The quills are still. The monastery sleeps. Allow yourself to join them, to drift into the quiet, into the deep, restorative peace of sleep. Sleep now. Sleep.
Hello there. Welcome. Find a comfortable position. Let your body grow heavy, your breathing slow and deep. Tonight, we journey not to a place of grand battles or towering kings whose names echo through millennia, but to a quieter place. A place of whispers, of lives lived in orderly streets, now reclaimed by time and dust. We travel to the banks of the mighty Indus River, to a civilization that flourished in silence, long before many others we know so well. We are going to listen to the echoes from the forgotten cities of the Indus Valley, perhaps Mohenjo-daro or Harappa. Let the sounds of the ancient night envelop you. Imagine the darkness, a vast, star-dusted sky, untouched by the glow of modern cities. The air is warm, carrying the scent of the river, of baked earth, and perhaps the faintest hint of wood smoke from hearths long since gone cold for the night. The city around you is a marvel of planning. Even now, in the deep stillness, streets laid out in a grid, remarkably straight, intersecting at perfect right angles. Houses built of sturdy, uniform baked bricks, a testament to a society that valued order and precision. There are no grand palaces dominating the skyline here. No colossal statues of revered emperors. It's a city of people, families, craftsmen, traders. Their lives, their stories, are etched into the very layout of these silent avenues. As we wander, let your mind drift. Let the quietude of this lost world seep into your consciousness. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the deepest black of night begins to soften. A pale, pearlescent glow touches the eastern horizon. The Indus River, a life-giving artery, catches this first light, a silver ribbon winding through the plains. Inside one of these brick homes, a family begins to stir. The house is practical, likely 2 stories, built around a central courtyard, offering privacy and a cool refuge from the day's eventual heat. Perhaps you can imagine the feel of the smooth, worn brick underfoot. There are no ornate decorations, but a sense of clean, functional living. The people of this city valued cleanliness. Many homes had dedicated bathing areas, with drains leading to sophisticated covered sewer systems running beneath the main streets, an innovation almost unheard of for its time, some 4,500 years ago. Imagine the quiet sounds of water, of morning ablutions, a ritual of purification before the day truly begins. A simple breakfast would follow. Grains like wheat and barley, cultivated in the fertile plains surrounding the city, perhaps made into a flatbread or a porridge. Fruits, dates, maybe some milk. The flavors are earthy, wholesome. The sounds are muted. The soft padding of feet, the low murmur of voices, the clinking of simple pottery. As the sun climbs a little higher, the city begins to breathe, not with a chaotic rush, but with a steady, purposeful rhythm. From a doorway, you might catch the rhythmic tap-tap-tap of a bead maker. These weren't just any beads. The artisans of the Indus were masters, drilling impossibly long, slender carnelian beads, of vibrant red, coveted far and wide. Imagine the patience, the steady hand, the years of skill poured into each tiny, perfect cylinder. Further down the street, a potter's wheel might be spinning. The Indus pottery is distinctive, sturdy, often adorned with intricate geometric patterns or depictions of animals and plants in black on a red slip. The whir of the wheel, the gentle shaping of clay, a craft as old as civilization itself. Metalworkers, too, are at their benches, copper and bronze tools, fish hooks, spearheads, and delicate ornaments. They understood the secrets of smelting and casting, transforming raw ore into the implements of daily life and defense. And then there are the traders. This civilization thrived on trade. Standardized weights and measures, meticulously crafted from chert, ensured fairness in transactions. Tiny, intricately carved stone seals, bearing enigmatic symbols and animal motifs, perhaps a bull, an elephant, or a creature of myth, were pressed into clay to mark ownership, to seal contracts. These seals have been found as far away as Mesopotamia, a silent testament to the vast networks that connected this ancient world. Imagine the marketplace, not necessarily loud, but a hub of exchange: cotton, grains, timber, precious stones, and finished crafts. One of the most iconic structures in a city like Mohenjo-Daro is the Great Bath, a large rectangular pool built with remarkable precision, waterproofed with bitumen. Steps lead down into it from either end. What was its purpose? A place for ritual purification, a communal bathing area, a sacred space connected to religious beliefs we can only guess at. Standing by its edge in our minds, we can almost feel the cool stillness of the water, hear the echoes of ancient ceremonies. There are no grand temples here, no obvious places of worship that dominate the landscape like in Egypt or Mesopotamia. Does this mean they were less religious, or that their spiritual practices were more personal, more integrated into daily life and the home? The animal figures on the seals, the powerful bull, the unicorn-like creature, did they represent deities, totems, or something else entirely? And then there is the greatest enigma, their script. Hundreds of unique symbols found on seals, pottery, and small tablets. Beautiful, intricate, but stubbornly silent. We cannot read it. The stories, the laws, the poems, the histories of the Indus people remain locked away, a whisper we cannot quite decipher. Imagine them writing, carefully inscribing these symbols, messages meant to be understood, now just beautiful patterns to our eyes. What secrets do they hold? The sun reaches its zenith, and the city might slow its pace for a while, seeking shade in the courtyards under awnings. Children perhaps play with small terracotta figurines, animals, carts, human shapes, simple toys that have survived millennia. Their laughter, a universal sound, a fleeting echo in these ancient streets. As evening approaches, the light softens again, painting the brick buildings in hues of orange and red. Families gather once more. The evening meal, similar to the morning's fare, but perhaps with some fish from the river or vegetables from nearby gardens. What did they talk about as the day wound down? The day's trade, the progress of their craft, news from distant lands brought by travelers. Did they tell stories to their children, myths and legends passed down through generations, now lost to us because their words are unreadable? We can only imagine the murmur of their voices, the shared moments of family life, so distant in time, yet so fundamentally familiar. The last sliver of the sun dips below the horizon. The stars begin to emerge, brilliant in the unpolluted sky. The city settles. The sounds of work cease, replaced by the gentle hum of a community at rest. Perhaps the distant bark of a dog, the chirping of crickets. Why did this remarkable civilization, so advanced, so orderly, eventually decline? Was it climate change, the shifting of rivers, internal strife, or the arrival of new peoples? The cities were gradually abandoned, their sophisticated systems falling into disuse, their people dispersing, their script forgotten. The silence that fell over these once thriving urban centers is profound. They left behind no grand monuments to individual rulers, no boastful inscriptions of conquest. Instead, they left us with the legacy of their careful planning, their skilled craftsmanship, their enigmatic symbols, and a sense of quiet, communal dignity. And so, we leave them to their rest, these people of the Indus. Their whispers have brushed against us, carried on the night air. Their world, though faded, has touched our imagination. Let the peace of this ancient, orderly place settle over you. Let the mystery of their silence be a gentle lullaby. There is nothing more to see here now, only the quiet flow of the river, the soft breath of the wind through the ruins, and the deep, deep stillness of time. Allow yourself to drift, to float into a peaceful, restful sleep. Sleep now. Sleep.
Greetings. Come, settle down. Let your limbs grow heavy, your mind quiet. Tonight, we don't stay within stone walls or city limits. We venture out, onto the ancient arteries of the world, the legendary Silk Road. We join a trader, a traveler, on a journey fraught with peril, yet filled with the promise of distant lands and untold riches. Let the vastness of the landscape and the rhythm of the caravan lull you into a state of deep repose. Imagine a bustling, yet still half-asleep trading post, perhaps somewhere on the edge of the Han Empire or near Samarkand. The air is cool, carrying the scent of dust, animals, exotic spices, and the smoke from countless small fires. Our trader, let's call him An Lushan, though he could be Sogdian, Persian, or from any of the myriad cultures that trod these paths, is making his final preparations. His camels, magnificent Bactrians with their twin humps, are being loaded. Veils of silk, shimmering even in the dim pre-dawn light, porcelain, perhaps tea or lacquerware, precious goods destined for the markets of the West. Other merchants are doing the same. A cacophony of languages murmurs through the encampment, a testament to the road's reach. There's a sense of nervous anticipation. The journey ahead is long, months, perhaps even years, stretching across deserts, over mountains, through lands known and unknown. The caravan provides safety in numbers, a moving island of humanity in the vast wilderness. The sun begins to paint the eastern sky. With a series of calls and commands, the caravan slowly lurches into motion. The initial pace is steady, measured. The sounds are of plodding hooves, the creak of overloaded carts, the soft jingle of bells on the lead animals, designed to keep the caravan together in dust storms or darkness. For the first few days, the landscape might be relatively familiar. Cultivated fields give way to scrubland, small villages where wary locals watch the procession pass. Our trader, An Lushan, has made this part of the journey before. He knows where the wells are, which paths are less treacherous. Yet, there is always an undercurrent of unease. Bandits are a constant threat, preying on those who stray or fall behind. The weather, too, is an unpredictable master. A sudden storm could scatter the animals. A drought could dry up a vital water source. Weeks pass. The landscape transforms. They are entering one of the great deserts, perhaps the Taklamakan, the place of no return. Endless dunes of sand stretch to the horizon, shimmering under a merciless sun. The heat is oppressive during the day, the night surprisingly cold. Water is more precious than gold. Each sip is carefully rationed. Imagine the monotony, the endless vista of sand, the slow, swaying gait of the camel. The sun beats down, reflecting off the pale ground, making the eyes ache. Mirages dance in the distance, promising water and shade where there is only more desolation. The wind whispers, sometimes carrying sand that stings the eyes and clogs the throat. And Lushan wraps his face in cloth, his eyes scanning the horizon for landmarks, for signs of danger, for the faintest hint of a distant oasis. He thinks of his family, of the profits he hopes to make, of the stories he will tell if he returns. Fear is a constant companion, but so is a stubborn resilience. Many have perished in these sands, their bones bleached white, a grim warning to those who follow. The silence of the desert is vast, broken only by the wind and the soft sounds of the caravan, a fragile thread of life in an ocean of sand. And then, after days or weeks that feel like an eternity, A smudge of green appears on the horizon, an oasis. The pace of the caravan quickens, a ripple of relief passing through men and animals alike. Palm trees, a source of fresh water, perhaps even a small settlement. Here they rest. Camels drink deeply, their thirst quenched. Men refill their water skins, wash the dust from their weary bodies, and trade for fresh supplies if available. There might be other caravans, heading in the opposite direction, exchanging news, warnings, and rumors from the road ahead and behind. These moments are precious, a brief respite from the harshness of the journey. But they cannot linger long. The road beckons. The desert gives way to foothills and then to mountains. Towering, snow-capped peaks that seem to pierce the sky. The Pamirs, the roof of the world. The paths become narrow, treacherous, clinging to the sides of steep gorges. The air thins, making every breath a conscious effort. The cold is biting, even in summer. Imagine the sheer scale of it. Tiny figures, men and animals, inching their way through colossal landscapes. A misstep could send a loaded camel and its precious cargo tumbling into the abyss. Rivers, swollen with glacial meltwater, must be forded. Avalanches are a constant threat. And Lushan feels the strain. His lungs burn, his muscles ache. He watches his animals carefully, urging them on, his livelihood dependent on their strength and endurance. The views are breathtaking. Jagged peaks, deep valleys, eagles soaring on the updrafts. But there is little time to appreciate the beauty. Survival is paramount. Each mountain pass conquered is a victory, but there is always another one looming ahead. Beyond the mountains, new lands unfold. Different peoples, different customs, different languages. Sogdian trading posts, Persian towns, encounters with nomadic tribes. The goods An Lushan carries are slowly exchanged. Silk for glass from the Roman world, spices from India for horses from the steppes, tea for precious metals or gemstones. Each transaction is a careful negotiation, a dance of cultures and commerce. He unrolls his shimmering silks, their quality speaking for itself. He examines the goods offered in return, his experienced eye judging their worth. Trust is a fragile commodity, built on reputation and shrewd observation. He learns a few words in new tongues, observes unfamiliar customs, always an outsider, yet part of this vast, interconnected web of human endeavor. He hears stories of distant empires, of strange beasts, of faiths he does not share. The world feels immense, diverse, and full of wonders and dangers. Months have passed, and Lushan is weathered, leaner, his eyes holding the vastness of the landscapes he has traversed. His original cargo is much diminished, replaced by new treasures. He is far from home, in a world utterly different from where he began. The weariness is bone deep, a constant companion. He has faced sandstorms, bandits, treacherous mountain passes, illness, and the loss of animals and perhaps even companions. Yet, as he approaches a major trading city in the west, perhaps Antioch, or even a port on the Mediterranean, a flicker of anticipation, of hope, ignites within him. The journey's end is in sight, or at least a significant milestone. The profits from his venture could secure his family's future, elevate his status. The stories he carries are as valuable as his goods. He has seen the world, endured its trials, and survived. Tonight, the caravan is camped in a relatively safe place. The animals are fed and settled. Guards are posted, and Lushan sits by a small fire, sipping tea, the warmth seeping into his tired body. The stars above are brilliant, the same stars that shone over his home, so many thousands of miles away. The road has been long. The memories of its hardships and its wonders mingle in his mind. But for now, there is a moment of peace. Let the gentle crackle of the fire, the soft murmur of the wind, and the deep stillness of the traveler's night guide you. There are no more deserts to cross tonight, no more mountains to climb. Only the gentle descent into sleep. Let the echoes of the Silk Road fade into your dreams. Rest now. Sleep deeply.
Hello again. Find your comfort. Let your breathing deepen. Tonight, we step into the shadows of a grand and grimy era beneath the flickering gaslight of Victorian London. We won't be visiting the drawing rooms of the affluent, nor the halls of power. Instead, we descend to the river's edge to walk in the sodden boots of those who eked out a desperate existence from what the great city discarded. We are going to explore the life of a mudlark. Let the murky waters and the city's forgotten whispers draw you into a state of calm. Imagine the Thames, not as a picturesque waterway, but as a vast, flowing repository of London's refuse. The hour is pre-dawn or perhaps late evening, when the tide is at its lowest. A chill, damp air hangs heavy, thick with the smell of brine, decaying matter, coal smoke, and the myriad effluvia of a teeming metropolis. Gas lamps along the distant embankments cast a sickly yellow glow, their light barely penetrating the gloom of the foreshore. This is the domain of the mudlark. Often children, sometimes the elderly or the truly destitute. They are figures cloaked in rags, their faces smudged with grime, their eyes scanning the newly exposed riverbed with a desperate intensity. The river has receded, revealing its secrets, a treacherous expanse of thick, black, viscous mud littered with the detritus of a million lives. Our mudlark, let's call her Eliza, though she is but one of many, pulls her threadbare shawl tighter. She has no proper boots, perhaps just scraps of leather tied around her feet, or she goes barefoot, her skin long accustomed to the cold and the filth. Her only tool might be a keen eye, or perhaps a small, pointed stick to probe the muck. She steps onto the foreshore. The mud sucks at her ankles, cold and clinging. Each step is an effort, a potential trap. The surface is uneven, littered with sharp stones, broken glass, discarded metal, and worse. Disease is a constant companion here. Cholera, typhoid, dysentery, thriving in the polluted waters and the filth that coats everything. A small cut, easily ignored elsewhere, could be a death sentence here. What is she searching for? Anything of the smallest value. A dropped coin, a lost button, fragments of copper from ship hulls, old nails, scraps of rope, lumps of coal fallen from passing barges. Sometimes, if exceptionally lucky, a piece of jewelry, a silver spoon, or something more substantial washed ashore from a wreck or carelessly discarded. Eliza's eyes, accustomed to the dim light, dart back and forth. She bends low, her fingers sifting through the cold, slimy mud. The work is backbreaking, monotonous. Hours are spent wading, stooping, searching, often for pitifully small rewards. Imagine the things she might find, and the stories they might tell, if only briefly. A clay pipe stem, broken and discarded by a docker. A shard of patterned pottery from a household upstream. A single tarnished copper penny, a small victory, enough for a piece of stale bread. The river coughs up the city's history, its losses, its waste, and the mudlarks are its scavengers. There is competition, too. Other shadowy figures move across the mudflats, equally desperate. Sometimes there are territorial disputes, hushed arguments over a promising patch of mud. But mostly, it's a solitary, silent endeavor, each individual lost in their own small circle of hope and despair. The river is vast, but its generosity is meager. The mud itself is a danger. Pockets of quicksand-like mire can trap the unwary. The incoming tide is a relentless enemy. To be caught too far out is to risk drowning. The water,
thick with sewage and industrial waste, burns the skin and infects any wound. And then there are the human dangers. The riverbanks are often frequented by less savory characters. A lone mudlark, especially a child or a woman, is vulnerable. The few pennies earned through hours of toil could be easily snatched away. There is little protection, little recourse. The gaslights on the embankment seem a world away, illuminating a society that has largely forgotten or chosen to ignore those who scavenge at its feet. Think of the cold, a damp, penetrating chill that settles deep in the bones, never truly leaving. The clothes, such as they are often wet, offering little warmth. Shelter is a luxury. Many mudlarks sleep rough, under bridges, in doorways, or in crowded, squalid tenements, if they can afford a share of a room. After hours of searching, Eliza might have a small collection in her sack or basket, a handful of coal, a few rusty nails, perhaps a piece of old rope. She will take these to a rag-and-bone man or a marine store dealer, merchants who trade in the city's refuse. The payment is pitiful. A few halfpennies, perhaps a penny or two if the haul is good, barely enough to stave off starvation for another day. There is no security, no guarantee of finding anything. Some days are utterly fruitless, leaving the mudlark with nothing but aching limbs and a gnawing hunger. Imagine the smell that clings to her, the pervasive odor of the river mud, of decay, of poverty. It marks her, sets her apart. It's a smell that polite society recoils from, a constant reminder of her place at the very bottom of the teeming Victorian city. Are there any moments of light in such a life? Perhaps the camaraderie of other mudlarks, a shared crust of bread, a moment of grim humor. Perhaps the rare, astonishing find, something genuinely valuable that offers a brief respite, a fleeting dream of escape. But mostly, it is a life of relentless hardship. The dreams are small. A warm fire, a full belly, a night free from the gnawing cold. The future is a murky, uncertain thing, much like the riverbed itself. For many, mudlarking is not a choice, but the only option left when all other doors are closed. It is a testament to the human will to survive, even in the most abject conditions. The gaslights flicker, casting long shadows. The city above hums with life, with industry, with progress. But down here, on the shores of the Thames, time seems to move differently, measured by the ebb and flow of the tide, and the desperate search for sustenance. As the tide begins to turn, its waters creeping back to reclaim the foreshore, Eliza and the other mudlarks must retreat. The river, having offered up its meager bounty, now becomes a threat once more. They scramble back to higher ground, their small earnings clutched tightly. The city is fully awake now, or perhaps settling into its evening routines. The mudlarks melt back into the alleyways and slums, their brief window of opportunity closed until the next low tide. They carry the river with them, in the mud on their clothes, in the chill in their bones, in the weariness in their eyes. Let the image of Eliza fade. Her struggle, though harsh, is a story of a time long past. The river still flows, but her world is now just an echo, a whisper from beneath the gaslight. Allow the gentle lapping of the water, the distant, muffled sounds of the old city, to soothe you. There is no mud to sift through now, no cold to endure. Only the warmth of your bed, the peace of the present moment. Let the weariness of that forgotten life be a strange comfort, a reminder of the rest that awaits you. Drift now. Let the river's murmur carry you into a deep and untroubled sleep. Sleep, sleep now. Welcome. Allow yourself to settle, to release the day. Tonight, we journey to the fertile black land Kemet, the gift of the Nile. We won't walk in the golden sandals of Pharaoh, nor decipher the grand pronouncements of high priests. Instead, we seek the quieter path, the life of one who toiled in the Pharaoh's shadow, an essential cog in the vast machinery of ancient Egypt. We will spend a night with a scribe, a keeper of records, a guardian of order. Let the ancient air soothe you, and the rhythms of the Nile guide you to rest. Imagine the first pale light of dawn touching the eastern desert cliffs, casting long shadows across the vibrant green fields that flank the majestic Nile. We are in Waset, the city you might know as Thebes, during a time of stability, perhaps the New Kingdom. In a modest mud brick house, not far from the sprawling temple complex of Karnak, a man named Pentu stirs. He is a scribe, but not one whose name will be carved on colossal statues. He is perhaps an overseer of temple granaries or a clerk in the vizier's office. His home is simple but comfortable, a few rooms around a small courtyard. The air is already warm, carrying the scent of baking bread from a neighbor's oven, the distant braying of a donkey, and the ever-present life-giving aroma of the river. He rises, performs his morning ablutions with water drawn from a nearby well or canal. His wife is already awake, tending to the small tasks of the household. There is a quiet routine to their lives, a rhythm dictated by the sun and the sacred duties of the land. After a simple breakfast, perhaps some bread, dates, a little beer, which is more of a nutritious drink than an intoxicant, Pentu prepares for his day. He wears a clean linen kilt, simple and practical. In his hand, he carries his scribe's palette, a rectangular piece of wood with wells for black and red ink, and a slot for his reed brushes. This is the emblem of his profession, his key to a life of relative comfort and respect, above the toil of the fields. He walks through the awakening city. The streets are already filling with people, farmers heading to their fields, craftsmen opening their workshops, priests making their way to the temples. The sounds are a symphony of daily life, chatter in the Egyptian tongue, the cries of vendors, the hammering from a carpenter's shop. Pentu's destination is likely a section of a vast temple complex, or an administrative building. Imagine him passing beneath towering pylons, through courtyards where sunlight streams down, casting sharp shadows. He is a small figure in this monumental landscape, yet his role is vital. Pentu arrives at his designated office, perhaps a small chamber within the temple walls, or a shared room with other scribes. He sits, lightly cross-legged, before a low wooden desk, or perhaps unrolls his papyrus on his lap. His task for the day begins. He might be tallying sacks of grain brought as offerings or taxes to the temple granaries, each sack counted, its origin noted, its quality assessed. Or perhaps he is drafting letters for a superior, recording legal proceedings, or copying religious texts. The work is meticulous, demanding intense concentration. Accuracy is paramount. An error in the accounts could mean disaster for supplies, or worse, accusations of corruption or incompetence, things that could bring swift punishment in a society that valued ma'at, order and justice. Above all, imagine the feel of the papyrus, smooth on one side, slightly rougher on the other. The reed brush, its tip carefully chewed to the right fineness, dipped into the black ink made from soot and gum, or the red ink from ochre, used for headings or important figures. He writes in hieratic, the cursive script used for everyday administration, a faster, more flowing version of the hieroglyphs you see on tomb walls. Each symbol is precise, practiced. His hand moves steadily across the sheet. His day is not spent in complete isolation. Other scribes work nearby, a quiet camaraderie existing between them. Messengers come and go, bringing documents from other departments or instructions from higher officials. Perhaps a foreman of field workers comes to report on the harvest, his voice rougher, his skin darker from the sun, a contrast to Pentu's paler complexion from working indoors. Pentu listens, records, calculates. He is a conduit of information, a keeper of the state's memory. He sees the lists of supplies needed for a festival, the records of rations for the workers building a new shrine, the accounts of expeditions to the turquoise mines in the Sinai. He doesn't command these expeditions, nor does he carve the statues, but his careful records ensure these grand undertakings can proceed. He is part of the intricate web that holds the kingdom together. He might pause for a midday meal, simple fare brought from home, or provided by the temple. During this break, he might observe the grand processions, the rituals performed by priests in their leopard skins, the sheer scale of the devotion and power that surrounds him. He is close to it, yet distinct. There are pressures, deadlines to meet, quotas to be filled, the watchful eyes of superiors, the fear of making a mistake that could have serious repercussions. The heat of the afternoon can be stifling, making concentration difficult. But there are also satisfactions, a perfectly balanced account, a neatly written document, clear and unambiguous. The knowledge that his work contributes to the smooth running of the temple, of the state itself. He is educated, literate, in a world where most are not. This grants him status, a degree of security. He understands the systems, the laws, the traditions. He is not a hero in the grand tales, but he is a guardian of the everyday order that allows those grand tales to unfold. He ensures the offerings are made, the workers are fed, the pharaoh's decrees are recorded and disseminated. His work is the quiet foundation upon which the more visible glories of Egypt are built. As the sun begins to dip towards the western horizon, painting the sky in fiery oranges and reds, Pentu carefully finishes his tasks. He checks his figures one last time, rolls up his papyri, and cleans his palette. The day's work is done. He walks home, perhaps a little weary, but with the quiet satisfaction of duties fulfilled. The evening air is cooler now. The sounds of the city are softer, more subdued. Families are gathering. The smell of cooking fires is more pronounced. He reaches his home, greets his wife, perhaps his children if he has them. The conversation might turn to mundane matters, the price of fish in the market, news from a relative, plans for a local festival. Here, in the privacy of his home, he is not just a scribe, but a husband, a father, a man. He is part of the timeless rhythm of Egyptian family life. Later, as the oil lamps cast a soft glow within the house, Pentu might reflect on his day. He is a small part of a vast, ancient, and enduring civilization. He serves the gods. He serves Pharaoh. He serves Ma'at. By ensuring that the granaries are full, the records are true, and order is maintained. His name may not be remembered by posterity, but his contribution, like that of countless others like him, is woven into the very fabric of Egypt. Let the peace of the Egyptian night settle over you. The Nile flows on, as it has for millennia. The stars shine brightly in the desert sky. Pentu, and all the other quiet officials of his time, have earned their rest. There are no more tallies to check, no more reports to write for today. Only the deep, restorative embrace of sleep. Allow yourself to drift down, like a boat on the gentle current of the Nile, into a peaceful, profound sleep. Sleep now. Sleep.
Welcome, dear friend, to this quiet space, a sanctuary carved from the twilight hours, a haven from the bustling day. Let the darkness around you be a comforting blanket, warm and secure. Allow my voice to be a gentle guide, a soft current to carry you back, far back, into the hushed whispers of a time long since past. Tonight, we are not seeking the clamor of grand battles, nor the resonant pronouncements of emperors etched in stone. Instead, we seek the quiet, unassuming company of something small, something profoundly humble, yet a steadfast, silent witness to the myriad currents of life. Imagine, if you will, a world illuminated not by the unwavering, sterile glow of electricity, but by the tender, living dance of a tiny flame. A world where shadows stretched long and deep, playing across walls and faces, and the coming of night brought with it a profound, enveloping stillness, broken only by the softest sounds of life cocooned within ancient walls. Our companion on this journey into slumber is one such flame-bearer, a simple Roman oil lamp, not one of lavish gold or intricately chased bronze destined for a senator's table, but of humble terracotta, shaped by knowing, patient hands, and destined to watch silently as the rich tapestry of human existence unfolded around it. Let us give it a name, a gentle identifier for our story. Let us call it Lucerna, a small light, a tiny spark in a vast and often overwhelming world. Lucerna's story begins not in a place of grandeur, but in the earthy, sun-drenched reality of a potter's workshop. Picture it, perhaps nestled on the bustling, dusty fringes of Rome itself, where the city's insatiable needs were met by countless artisans. Or maybe it was in a smaller provincial town, its rhythms dictated by the slow turning of the seasons and the timeless needs of its people. Feel the palpable warmth of that place, the air thick, almost sweet with the scent of damp earth, of clay recently drawn from the riverbank, the rhythmic, hypnotic whir of the potter's wheel, a constant, soothing lullaby in the background of daily life. The clay that would become Lucerna was dug from the earth, cool and yielding to the touch, holding the memory of millennia within its particles. It was slapped onto the spinning wheel, a formless lump of potential, and then, under the steady, guiding pressure of skilled hands, hands perhaps calloused from years of this work, stained with the earth's ruddy blush, hands that understood the language of clay, it began to take form. A shallow, open bowl designed to cradle the precious oil, a gently curving spout, a delicate channel for the wick that would drink the fuel and offer the flame, a small, unassuming handle, perfectly shaped for a thumb and forefinger to grasp securely. No grand design, no elaborate flourishes, just honest, timeless function. It was one of many, perhaps, lined up like patient soldiers on rough wooden shelves, waiting for the next stage of its transformation. Then came the trial by fire. Not the gentle, nurturing flame it would later cradle, but the roaring, transformative heat of the kiln. For days and nights, Lucerna, along with its brethren, baked in the inferno, the intense heat purging impurities, the clay particles fusing, transforming, hardening, becoming resilient. When it finally emerged, it was irrevocably changed, no longer soft, pliable earth, but a vessel, strong and ready for its purpose. Its color, a warm, earthy red, like the soil from which it came, perhaps with subtle variations where the flames had kissed it most intensely. Its first scent, after the purifying fire, might have been the clean, dry, slightly acrid smell of the cooling kiln, or the bustling, multi-layered aroma of the marketplace stall where it was eventually sold, the scent of spices, textiles, and humanity. Or perhaps the cool, still dampness of a merchant storage room, awaiting its destiny. It waited, a small, empty promise of light in a world that so often knew darkness. Let us imagine Lucerna's first true home. Not a sprawling, marble-floored villa with mosaic courtyards, but a modest apartment, perhaps high up in one of Rome's towering insulae, those crowded, teetering, vibrant tenements that housed the city's beating heart, its ordinary citizens. Picture a small room, or perhaps two, shared by a family, a craftsman, a cobbler, a weaver, his wife, their children, a bustling microcosm of life. The first time Lucerna was filled, it would have been with olive oil, the golden lifeblood of the Mediterranean world. Not the finest, first-pressed, perfumed oil reserved for the wealthy, perhaps, but good, honest, everyday fuel, its scent clean and slightly fruity. A simple wick, likely fashioned from a twist of flax or a sliver of dried reed, was carefully threaded through its narrow spout, its tip lovingly dipped in the oil to prime it for burning. And then the spark. A piece of flint struck sharply against steel, showering tiny fleeting stars into the dimness. Or perhaps a glowing ember was carefully carried from a neighbor's hearth or the communal cooking fire and touched to the oil-soaked wick. The wick catches, sputters for a hesitant moment, a tiny plume of smoke rising, and then a small, steady flame blossoms. Lucerna is alive, fulfilling its destiny. Its light is soft, a gentle golden glow that pushes back the encroaching darkness of the evening. It doesn't banish the shadows entirely, but rather dances with them, creating a small, intimate circle of warmth and visibility. Within this circle, life unfolds in its most essential forms. By Lucerna's tender light, a mother, her face softened by the glow, mends a worn tunic, her needle flashing rhythmically, a small, repetitive sound of care. A father, his day's hard labor at the docks or in the forum now done, perhaps carves a small wooden horse or doll for his child, the shavings falling like soft snow on the packed earth or simple tile floor. His brow is furrowed in concentration, a quiet act of love. Children, their eyes wide and luminous in the flickering light, listen to a story, a myth of the gods and goddesses who dwell on Mount Olympus, or a well-loved tale of brave heroes and cunning tricksters, their voices hushed, drawing closer to the storyteller and the lamp's comforting presence. Lucerna sees the simple evening meal laid out, coarse bread, a handful of olives, perhaps some goat cheese or a warm vegetable stew, eaten together from shared bowls. It hears the quiet conversations, the recounting of the day's small events, the shared laughter that bounces softly off the plastered walls, the occasional sigh of weariness that speaks of honest work. It absorbs the ambient warmth of the small room, the comforting closeness of the family unit. It absorbs the unique smells of this home, the burning olive oil, the cooking food, the faint, lingering scent of wood smoke from the brazier, and the very human scent of life being lived. When sleep finally descends on the household, the flame is carefully, gently pinched out between moistened fingers, or a small terracotta lid, a snuffer, is placed over its opening, starving it of air. Lucerna rests in the profound darkness, holding the memory of the day, the echoes of voices and emotions within its earthy, cooling form. It hears the myriad sounds of the sleeping city beyond the thin walls, the creak and groan of the insular buildings settling, the distant bark of a strayed dog, the rhythmic call of the night watchman making his rounds, a reassuring sound in the deep night. Day after day, week after week, Lucerna's existence follows this ancient, comforting rhythm. Lit as dusk gathers like a soft grey bird, extinguished as the first tentative fingers of dawn probe the horizon. It is a silent, steadfast observer of the mundane, the everyday, the very fabric of human life, the small details that history books often overlook. It sees the hurried, sleepy-eyed mornings, the family stirring, preparing for the demands of the new day, the quick, simple breakfast, often eaten standing, the farewells at the doorway, a quick kiss, a muttered blessing. During the daylight hours, while unlit, Lucerna sits patiently on a small carved niche in the wall, or a simple wooden shelf alongside other household necessities, a pottery jug, a few worn wooden spoons. It feels the subtle vibrations of the building as neighbors above and below move about their own lives. It hears the symphony of sounds filtering in from the bustling street below, the sharp cries of vendors hawking their wares, the rumble of iron-shod cartwheels on uneven cobblestones, the incessant, lively chatter of 1,000 lives intersecting and diverging. Perhaps it sees moments of profound, quiet joy. A new baby brought home, swaddled tightly, its tiny, perfect face illuminated for the first time by Lucerna's gentle, welcoming glow. A festival day, like the Parentalia or the Lupercalia, where a little extra oil is afforded, a rare treat, and the flame burns brighter, longer, casting more exuberant shadows, as if sharing in the communal spirit of celebration. Small sweet cakes might be laid out, a cup of watered wine shared. It also bears witness to moments of deep sorrow, the inevitable counterpoint to joy. Illness, when worried faces, etched with anxiety, huddle close around a pallet bed, their features starkly defined in the flickering light. It sees tears fall silently, hears hushed prayers whispered to household gods, the Lares and Penates, whose small, crudely carved statues might share the same shelf, their painted eyes seeming to watch with a similar silent empathy. Lucerna offers its steady, unjudging light in these times of grief and uncertainty, a small, unwavering beacon in the overwhelming darkness of loss or fear. It witnesses the small, everyday dramas, the children's squabbles, quickly flaring like a sudden draft on its flame and just as quickly forgotten in a shared game. The rare but sharp disagreement between husband and wife, their voices rising briefly before falling back into strained whispers, the tension palpable in the small room. It sees reconciliations, too, quiet understandings reached in its soft, forgiving glow, a hand reached out, a shared glance. It learns the complex cadence of human emotion, the subtle ebb and flow of family life, the unspoken language of shared existence. Years pass, etching their passage not just on human faces, but on the objects that serve them. Lucerna, being sturdy terracotta, endures. But families change, grow, shrink, prosper, or face hardship. Circumstances shift like the sands. Perhaps its first family moves to a larger dwelling or to a different city. Or perhaps illness or misfortune strikes and the household is broken. Lucerna, a humble possession, might be left behind in the move or sold for a few precious sestertii in a bustling, chaotic second-hand market. Imagine it now in a completely different setting. Perhaps it finds its way into the hands of a quiet, introspective scholar, a man with a consuming love for ancient scrolls and the pursuit of knowledge. Now Lucerna's light falls not on mending or children's faces, but on fragile papyrus, illuminating the intricate curves of Greek letters or the stern, elegant lines of Latin prose. It stays lit late into the deepest hours of the night, long after the city outside has fallen silent. The only sounds in this new sanctuary are the soft rustle of the scroll being unrolled or turned, the scholar's quiet, rhythmic breathing, the occasional soft sigh of concentration or discovery. Here the conversations it overhears are of a different nature. Perhaps the scholar reads aloud to himself, his voice a low murmur, discussing points of philosophy with an imagined colleague, reciting lines of Virgil or Ovid, or pondering the complex movements of the stars and planets. The air in this room smells of old papyrus, the slightly metallic scent of ink, the dried dust of accumulated knowledge, and the scholar's thoughtful, focused contemplation. Lucerna becomes a trusted companion to solitary study, a silent, unwavering partner in the timeless pursuit of wisdom. Or, by another twist of fate, Lucerna might find itself in the rough, functional environment of a soldier's barracks, perhaps near the city's defensive walls, or in a fort on a distant frontier. The light it casts here is harsher, less forgiving, the shadows it throws starker and more defined. It illuminates coarse woolen blankets neatly folded, the glint of polished armor hanging from a peg, shields leaning against the wall, swords and daggers carefully stowed. It hears the gruff, boisterous talk of campaigns fought and battles won, the boasting of young recruits, the quieter, more somber reminiscences of veterans, the hushed confessions of fear or homesickness spoken only in the dead of night when bravado sleeps. It smells of worn leather, oiled metal, sweat, stale wine, and the communal living of men far from home. It witnesses the rough camaraderie, the endless boredom between duties, the ever-present underlying tension of a soldier's precarious life. It might even, for a period, find itself in a small, humble neighborhood shrine, perhaps dedicated to Vesta, the revered goddess of the hearth, home, and family, or to the ever-watchful Lares, the guardian spirits of the household. Here, its flame is not just for illumination, but is itself a prayer, an offering, a symbol of devotion. It sees hands, worn and humbled, clasped in earnest supplication. It witnesses small offerings of incense, its fragrant smoke curling towards the heavens, or tiny cakes, or a few drops of wine laid before it, and the images of the gods. The atmosphere here is one of reverence, of quiet hope, of a community's shared faith. Through all these diverse changes, these different windows onto Roman life, Lucerna remains fundamentally the same, a simple vessel for light. Its experiences, if we can call them that, deepen. Its silent understanding of the vast spectrum of human life broadens with each new owner, each new environment. It has seen poverty and modest comfort, intense intellectual pursuit, and the stark realities of martial readiness, simple, heartfelt faith, and the endless cycle of daily toil. If Lucerna could somehow share its silent chronicle, what specific, poignant moments would it choose to illuminate for us from its long vigil? Perhaps it would recall with a gentle fondness a young girl, her brow deeply furrowed in concentration, her small tongue poking out from the corner of her mouth in an unconscious gesture of effort, as she painstakingly traces her first letters on a reusable wax tablet by its steady light. It would remember the immense, quiet pride in her father's eyes as he watches her, his calloused hand resting gently on her shoulder. The future learning to right itself by lamplight. It might conjure the image of two young lovers meeting secretly in a secluded alcove, the city's noise a distant murmur. Their faces are close,
their features softened and made beautiful by Lucerna's glow, their shadows merging and dancing on the wall behind them as if with a life of their own. Their hands find each other in the small, intimate pool of light Lucerna provides, a silent acknowledgment of a forbidden or fledgling affection. The air around them feels electric with unspoken words, with hope and trepidation. It certainly would remember, with a somber clarity, the long, anxious vigil beside a sickbed. The endless, dragging hours of the night, punctuated only by the shallow, labored breathing of the patient. The caregiver's weary, devoted face, pale and drawn, illuminated softly by Lucerna's unwavering flame, a small, constant beacon of hope and steadfast endurance in the face of suffering. The only sounds in the oppressive stillness are the patient's rasping breath, a whispered prayer, and the gentle, almost imperceptible hiss of Lucerna's own flame consuming its oil.
It would remember the rare and precious days of festival, Saturnalia, perhaps, when social norms were briefly overturned, and even the humblest homes felt a spark of unbridled joy and release. The air rich with the smell of special foods being prepared, roasted meats, honeyed cakes. The sound of laughter a little louder, a little less restrained than usual. The flame of Lucerna itself burning a little brighter, a little longer, as if it too were sharing in the communal celebration, its light dancing on smiling faces. And, inevitably, it would remember fear. The terrifying night the Great Fire, that recurring nightmare of ancient cities, broke out in a nearby quarter. The acrid, choking smell of smoke growing stronger with each passing moment, insinuating itself through every crack and crevice. The confused, panicked shouts echoing in the narrow street below. The ominous, flickering red glow in the night sky, visible even through the small, unglazed window of its room. The hurried, desperate packing of meager, essential belongings. Lucerna itself almost forgotten in the chaos, then snatched up at the last possible moment by a trembling hand, its little flame guttering and threatening to extinguish as its owner fled into the pandemonium of the streets. A tiny point of familiar light in a world suddenly turned terrifying and unpredictable. These are not the grand, sweeping events that fill the annals of history, but the small, intensely personal, deeply human moments that truly make up a life. And Lucerna was there, a silent, steady, unblinking presence through them all. Time, the great sculptor, leaves its mark not only on flesh and stone, but even on humble fired clay. Lucerna, after many, many years, perhaps even decades, of faithful, unwavering service, begins to show the inevitable signs of its age. A small chip on its rim, the result of being knocked accidentally from a shelf during a hasty cleaning. A dark, indelible stain of soot and carbonized oil around the spout, a testament to countless hours of burning, countless drops of spilled oil. Its surface, once relatively smooth from the potter's hand, is now worn and slightly roughened, bearing the subtle patina of countless hands that have held it, filled it, trimmed its wick, and lit its flame. Perhaps newer, more fashionable lamps become available in the markets. Lamps with multiple spouts for a brighter light. Lamps crafted from more expensive bronze, or lamps adorned with more elaborate relief decorations depicting gods, goddesses, or scenes from mythology. Lucerna, simple, plain, and now visibly old, might be relegated to a less important room, a storage space, or used only as a backup when other newer lamps are unavailable or their oil has run dry. Its flame, when lit, still burns, but perhaps a little more fitfully now, requiring more frequent tending of the wick. But it still gives its light, faithfully, stubbornly, until the very end of its useful life. One day, it is simply not lit. Perhaps it develops a crack that leaks oil, rendering it unsafe or unusable. Perhaps its last owner passes away, and those who remain have no sentimental attachment or practical use for such an old, plain lamp. It is stored away in a dark, dusty corner, among other forgotten, discarded things. A broken tool, a worn-out sandal, a chipped pot. Or maybe, more unceremoniously, it is discarded, tossed onto a growing rubbish heap outside the city walls, its purpose fulfilled, its long service ended. There it lies in the darkness, the true, unyielding darkness this time, no longer a harbinger of its own comforting light. It begins its slow return to the earth from which it came, gradually being covered by layers of dust, by household debris, by the relentless, indifferent passage of years, then decades, then centuries. The vibrant, teeming city it knew so intimately crumbles around it, changes its shape, is built over by successive generations. New languages are spoken on its ancient streets, new gods are worshipped in new temples, entirely new ways of life emerge and fade. Lucerna sleeps, its myriad stories, its silent observations held deep within its silent, perhaps broken terracotta form. Centuries upon centuries pass. Great empires rise to unimaginable heights and then fall into ruin and memory. The world Lucerna knew transformed beyond any possible recognition. Forests grow where cities once stood, and new cities rise on forgotten plains. Then, one ordinary day, perhaps 2,000 years later, a trowel, wielded by an archaeologist, or a shovel, turning the earth for a new construction, strikes something small and hard in the soil. Careful hands, intrigued by the resistance, begin to brush away the accumulated earth, the compacted dust of ages. And there it is. Lucerna. Broken, perhaps, missing a fragment, encrusted with the soil of millennia, but unmistakably what it once was. A small, humble, terracotta Roman oil lamp. To the archaeologist who uncovers it, it is an artifact, a tangible piece of evidence, a clue to the daily life, the domestic routines, the technological level of a long-lost civilization. It is carefully cleaned, measured, photographed, catalogued, perhaps analyzed for its clay composition. It might eventually find its way into the climate-controlled environment of a museum display case, labeled with its provenance and estimated date. It is admired by visitors for its simplicity, its antiquity, its survival. But for us tonight, as we lie on the cusp of sleep, it is more than just an artifact. It is Lucerna, the little lamp that watched Rome. It is a vessel, not just of ancient olive oil, but of condensed time, of unseen moments, of the quiet, persistent, enduring flame of human existence. It is a tangible link to individual lives, lived with the same hopes, fears, joys, and sorrows that we know today. As we prepare now for our own rest, as the day's thoughts begin to soften and recede, let us think for a moment of Lucerna, and of all the countless other silent, unassuming witnesses that surround us, even now in our own homes. The old wooden chair in the corner that has held generations of our family, the worn, beloved book on the nightstand, its pages filled with stories that have transported us, the simple ceramic cup that has shared countless morning conversations, countless moments of quiet reflection. They too have their stories, their accumulated memories, their quiet whispers from the walls of our own lives. They connect us, in a subtle but profound way, to those who came before us, and to the enduring, universal human experiences of love, loss, work, creativity, and hope. The little Roman lamp, Lucerna, no longer burns with a physical flame. Its terracotta form is cold and still. But the light that it represents, the light of human life, of daily struggles met with resilience, of simple joys cherished in fleeting moments, that light never truly goes out. It is passed on in objects, in stories, in traditions, in the very fabric of our shared, continuous human history. Allow yourself now to drift, to float on the gentle, soothing current of these thoughts. Let the peace of the distant past and the quiet of the present moment envelop you like the softest embrace. There is nothing more to do, nothing more to see, nothing more to ponder. Only rest, only quiet, only the soft, enduring glow of memory and the promise of dreams. Good night. Sleep well.